This government had a very bad inheritance. Just think of it. Tax levels at post-war highs, mass uncontrolled immigration, most people coming, not actually working and being a burden.
Welcome back to UK Unfiltered, the only place on the internet where the tea is hot, the takes are cold-blooded, and the British establishment gets the forensic roasting it so richly deserves. I am your host, and today we are witnessing a political car crash so spectacular it makes the Hindenburg look like a minor fender bender. We are talking about the ultimate Prince of Darkness, Lord Peter Mandelson, whose ties to the late, disgraced Jeffrey Epstein have finally caught up with him in a flurry of leaked emails, secret payments, and a very sudden resignation from the Labour Party. But while the Labour front bench tries to pretend they have only just heard of the man, Nigel Farage is out here in full told you so mode, exposing Sir Keir Starmer's absolute lack of judgment on live television. From secret economic briefings sent to Epstein's inbox to the Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy being dragged into the investigative splash zone, the walls are not just closing in, they are practically sandpapering the Prime Minister's reputation. Grab your tea, pull up a chair, and let us get into the grid of why the elite are panicking while the United Kingdom remains in a state of absolute disbelief. Quick favor, if you are loving this unfiltered deep dive into the murky waters of Westminster, hit that subscribe button. Over 92% of our viewers have not yet, and honestly, we are trying to reach cruising altitude here before the next scandal breaks. It is free, takes a second, and means the world to us. Thanks. If you did. Now back to the show.
So the Prime Minister says we must have digital ID. That's the way we'll stop illegal immigration. Well, think about it. Germany has ID cards, strict ID and checks. It's made no difference at all in Germany, and nor will it here. All that digital ID will be is a means of controlling the population, of telling us what we can and can't do, of fining the innocent. And didn't we see it all when we had the pandemic, when you had to have vaccines?
The headlines today, February 3rd, 2026, read like a rejected script from a spy thriller, but unfortunately for the British taxpayer, it is all too real. New files released by the United States Department of Justice have pulled the shroud of secrecy off Peter Mandelson's cabinet years. We are talking about 2009, the height of the global financial crisis. While the rest of us were checking our bank balances with trembling hands, Mandelson was reportedly forwarding high-level, confidential government emails to Jeffrey Epstein. One email, titled Business Issues and written by Gordon Brown's special advisor Nick Butler, detailed £20 billion of potential asset sales and sensitive tax plans. Mandelson's caption, interesting note that has gone to the PM. Imagine that for a second. A sitting cabinet minister, the business secretary, acting as a personal news ticker for a man who was already a convicted sex offender at that point. Epstein's response was a blunt, "What saleable assets?" To which Mandelson or an associate reportedly replied, "Land, property, I guess." It is the kind of breach of trust that makes a sieve look like a waterproof container. But it does not stop at property. The files also show Mandelson advising Epstein on how JP Morgan boss Jamie Dimon should threaten the then Chancellor Alistair Darling over a banker's bonus tax. Treasury digging in, but I am on case, Mandelson allegedly wrote. It turns out the Prince of Darkness was not just working for the British public, he was apparently moonlighting as a lobbyist-in-chief for a billionaire financier. Now, while Sir Keir Starmer is busy looking for a rug big enough to sweep this under, Nigel Farage has stepped onto the stage with the subtlety of a foghorn. At a Reform UK press conference alongside Lee Anderson, Farage did not just talk about the Mandelson disgrace, he used it as the ultimate proof that the Westminster elite are all in it for themselves. Farage's timing is, as usual, impeccably irritating for the government. He is out there unveiling a plan to save our pubs and the hospitality industry, arguing that while the Labour elite are busy emailing people about tax breaks for bankers, the local boozer is going to the wall. Farage's argument is punchy. Why should we trust a prime minister who appointed Mandelson as the U.S. ambassador in late 2024, despite the world already knowing about his best pal birthday book message from 2003? Farage essentially exposed the fact that Starmer's forensic mind apparently missed a mountain of evidence that was visible from space. By focusing on the common man issues like value-added tax reductions for pubs and excise duty reform, Farage is making Starmer look like he is more interested in the cocktail circuits of Washington than the pint glasses of Ashfield. It is a classic Farage pincer movement. Hit them on the morality, then hit them on the economy. Enter Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader who has clearly decided that polite opposition is a relic of the past. She has issued a blistering ultimatum. Starmer must tell us today exactly what senior ministers David Lammy and Pat McFadden knew. Why them? because they were junior ministers in Mandelson's department back in 2009 when these emails were allegedly flying around like digital confetti. Badenoch is asking the question that is keeping number 10 aides awake. Did the deputy prime minister know his boss was leaking market-sensitive data to a sex offender? Badenoch pointed out that if Lammy and McFadden knew and did not come forward, they are complicit in a stain over politics. She is calling for the cabinet secretary's investigation to be expanded, moving beyond just Mandelson's appointment as ambassador and looking into the moral bankruptcy of the entire operation. It is a suspenseful moment for Starmer. If it turns out his current deputy prime minister was in the room when the Epstein Express was being briefed, the government isn't just in trouble, it is functionally extinct.
ID to travel, to do various things. Did that stop the COVID pandemic spreading? Did it? Hell, all it did was put cost and inconvenience on everybody else. I also worry about massive data banks being held by the government, being hacked by foreign governments, by private companies, by criminals. I do not see a single benefit to the government having digital ID other than them controlling what we do.
Then there is the money. It is always about the money, is it not? Bank statements from 2003 and 2004 appear to show 3 separate payments of $25,000, totaling $75,000, sent from Epstein's JP Morgan accounts to accounts connected to Mandelson. Mandelson says he has no record and no recollection of this, which is a bit like me saying I have no recollection of eating an entire chocolate cake while I am currently covered in crumbs and holding a fork. Even more bizarre is the claim that Epstein sent £10,000 to Mandelson's partner, Reynaldo Avila da Silva, just 2 months after Epstein was released from prison in 2009 to fund an osteopathy course. Because when I think of international financiers and top-tier politicians, the first thing that comes to mind is their deep concern for the funding of musculoskeletal health studies. Mandelson threatened to sue the Financial Times back in September when they first asked about these payments, but the bursary defense is now looking as flimsy as a paper umbrella in a hurricane. Even Labour's own legends are turning on him. Baroness Harriet Harman, the former deputy leader, has been on the airwaves saying Mandelson shames politics. She is not just calling for him to stay away from Washington, she wants him kicked out of the House of Lords and stripped of his Privy Councillor status. She is essentially telling the king to change the locks and tell Peter he is not on the list anymore. Labour Minister Karen Smith has admitted that the government does not have the direct gift to remove a peer. It requires primary legislation and a cross-party effort in the Lords. But the message is clear. The Labour Party is currently trying to perform a public exorcism of the man they once credited with their 1997 landslide. They want him gone, they want him forgotten, and they want the stain he cast over the government to be bleached out before the next election cycle. As Nigel Farage pointed out today, the Prince of Darkness has finally run out of shadows to hide in. Sir Keir Starmer's attempt to modernize the party has been hit by a ghost from the past that refuses to stay in the attic. Whether it is the leaked emails, the osteopathy loans, or the mild threats to the Treasury, the Mandelson-Epstein connection is the scandal that keeps on giving. Starmer's urgent review might find the facts, but it won't find his lost credibility. Let us go deeper into why this is a resignation-level event. When you are the Prime Minister and you appoint someone to arguably the most important diplomatic post on earth, you do a background check. If that background check missed the fact that the appointee was forwarding the Chancellor's secret notes to a billionaire under investigation, then the Prime Minister's vetting process is about as effective as a screen door on a submarine. Farage's brilliance on the livestream was highlighting that Starmer claims to be the grown-up in the room, yet he invited the very personification of the old Labour sleaze back into the high command. It is not just about Mandelson. It is about Starmer's judgment. If he cannot see through Peter Mandelson, how can he see through the complex geopolitical threats facing the United Kingdom? This is what Farage meant when he said Starmer was completely exposed. He exposed a hollow leadership that prizes prestige over principle. The Reform UK leader, Lee Anderson, added his own brand of punchy commentary, reminding viewers that while these lads are playing with $75,000 bursaries, the average worker in Ashfield is struggling to pay for a pint at their local. It is a powerful analogy. In the world of Mandelson, £10,000 is a gift for a friend's course. In the world of the voter, it is half a year's salary. This wealth gap isn't just financial, it is moral. By standing next to Lee Anderson, Farage made sure the message hit home. Labour has become the party of the boardroom and the private jet, while Reform is the party of the taproom. The suspense is now building around the Cabinet Secretary's report. Will it be a whitewash? Or will it be the final nail? If David Lammy and Pat McFadden are found to have had even a whiff of Mandelson's activities back in 2009, Starmer will have to sack his own deputy prime minister. Imagine the chaos. A government less than 2 years in, losing its number two over a scandal involving a man who should have been retired decades ago. It is a Shakespearean tragedy played out on 24-hour news. Mandelson's partner taking money from Epstein just after his release from jail is perhaps the most grim detail of all. It suggests a level of comfort and familiarity with a criminal that is totally incompatible with public service. Harriet Harman's comment that politicians are all the same is the fear that keeps Starmer up at night. He promised change, but he delivered more of the same, but with a different tie. Nigel Farage's press conference was not just a news event, it was a burial. He buried the idea that Labour is the party of integrity. He buried the idea that Starmer is a master of detail. And most importantly, he buried Peter Mandelson's career once and for all. As the Prime Minister faces the cameras today, he looks smaller, less certain, and remarkably vulnerable. The Epstein shadow is long, and it has just reached number 10. The public is not going to accept "I didn't know" as an answer. Not this time. Not when the emails are right there in black and white. If you want to see the exact moment Farage dropped the hammer on Starmer during the live broadcast, we have the time-stamped breakdown of the Reform UK presser. It is a masterclass in political theater. We are also tracking the legislative moves in the Lords to see if they actually have the backbone to kick Peter out. The institution of the House of Lords is already under fire, and keeping a man with these stains on his character in a seat of power is only going to accelerate its demise. Let us zoom out for a second and look at the sheer scale of the betrayal here. This is about national security. When a cabinet minister is discussing the sale of state assets with a foreign financier, that is not just networking. It is a potential threat to the economic stability of the country. These DOJ files suggest that Mandelson was effectively running a shadow treasury, one where the primary client was not the British people, but a man who would eventually die in a jail cell under a cloud of the most heinous crimes imaginable. How Starmer thought this man was the right person to represent the United Kingdom in Washington is a question that requires a much better answer than "we followed the process."
Now, into our possession has come a whole bundle of documents going back to the implementation of the Human Rights Act in 1998. And what is really interesting about these documents, as the ECHR is written into British law, as we debate what's going to happen, what it's going to mean, we were given some very strong reassurances. For example, Blair's Lord Chancellor at the time, Derry Irvine, said in the House of Lords in 1997, "We believe that Clause 2 gets it right in requiring domestic courts to take into account judgments of the European Court, but not making them binding." I think that binding certainly goes further than the convention itself.
The analogy I like to use is that of a political ghost. Mandelson has been haunting Labour for 30 years. Every time they think they have buried him, he pops up again, usually with a new job and a fresh set of controversies. But this time, the ghost has brought receipts, $75,000 worth of receipts. And while Mandelson claims no recollection, the United States Justice Department tends to have a much better memory. This is not just a Westminster bubble story. This is about whether the people leading our country are the same people who are being funded by those who stand for everything we despise. Farage knows that the forgotten voters of the North and Midlands do not care about diplomatic protocols. They care about fairness. They care about the fact that they get a fine for being 5 minutes late on their taxes, while a lord gets away with forgetting $75,000 from a convicted predator. It is the ultimate two Britain story. One Britain, where you work hard and play by the rules, and another, where you email your best pal market secrets and get a trip to Washington as a reward. This is why Reform UK is surging. It is not because people love Farage, it is because they hate the hypocrisy that Mandelson represents. And what about the Prime Minister's forensic reputation? It is looking a bit frayed at the edges, isn't it? As a former director of public prosecutions, Starmer's entire brand is built on being the guy who knows the law and follows the evidence. Well, the evidence was there in 2019. It was there in 2004, and it is certainly there now. To say the relationship was surfaced during vetting, but the appointment went ahead anyway, suggests that either the vetting is broken or the Prime Minister's judgment neither is a good look for a man who promised to clean up politics. The suspense is reaching a fever pitch. As the Met Police Review reports a misconduct in public office, we are looking at the possibility of a former business secretary being interviewed under caution. If that happens, Starmer's government will be paralyzed, Every question at Prime Minister's Questions will be about Mandelson. Every interview will be about Epstein. The change, Labor promised, will be completely overshadowed by the chaos they have inherited by keeping Mandelson in the inner circle. Nigel Farage has played this perfectly. By holding his press conference today, he ensured that Starmer could not move on to any other topic. He forced the Prime Minister to defend the indefensible. Farage's witty, high-energy delivery on the live stream made the government look sluggish and defensive. He did not just expose Mandelson, he exposed the entire labor machine as being out of touch with the moral temperature of the country. The details emerging from these emails are not just damaging, they are treacherous. Forwarding secret memos to a foreign financier during a time of national economic peril is a fundamental breach of the ministerial code, if not the law. Mandelson's flippant caption, "Interesting note that has gone to the PM," shows a man who treated the inner workings of Downing Street as a curiosity to be shared for personal gain. It is a level of arrogance that is breathtaking, even for the Prince of Darkness. And let us talk about the osteopathy loan. £10,000 for a friend's course just 2 months after Epstein's release from prison. The timing is so precise it feels like a slap in the face to every victim of Epstein's network. It suggests that while the rest of the world was reeling from the horror of Epstein's crimes, Mandelson's household was reaching out for a laptop and tuition fees. It is a detail that makes the stomach turn. Farage pointed out that the public is tired of being lied to. When Mandelson threatened to sue the press last year over these allegations, he was using his power to suppress the truth. Now that the truth is out, the Prime Minister's silence is deafening. Starmer has been shrugged off by Trump in the past, but he cannot shrug off the United States Department of Justice. These files are official, they are verified, and they are catastrophic for anyone who associated with Epstein. The suspense now shifts to the House of Commons. Kemi Badenoch is not going to let this go. She is going to demand a full independent inquiry, not a cabinet secretary review that can be managed from within. She wants to know if the intelligence services flagged Mandelson and if Starmer overrode them. If he did, that is a resignation-level event in itself. The security of the nation should never be compromised for the sake of political patronage. Farage's Save the Pubs campaign is more than just a policy, it is a cultural weapon. By highlighting the struggles of the hospitality industry, he is reminding voters that while they are losing their local community hubs, the elite are busy in their gilded towers. It is a powerful narrative that cuts across traditional party lines. Reform UK is no longer just a protest party, it is becoming the voice of a disenfranchised majority. The role of Starmer's chief of staff and Mandelson's appointment is also under scrutiny. Who knew what and when? If the forensic prime minister's top team was complicit in hiding these links, the rot goes all the way to the core. This is why Badenoch is demanding transparency today. She knows that in politics, it is not just the crime, it is the cover-up. And the cover-up for Mandelson appears to have been going on for years. Labour's manifesto pledge to remove disgraced members from the Lords is now being tested. Will they follow through? Or will they protect one of their own? Karen Smith's admission that they need cross-party support is a clever way of spreading the blame. But the public sees through it. They want action, not excuses. If Mandelson stays in the Lords, the institution itself will be further delegitimized. Nigel Farage's live-streamed exposure of Starmer was a watershed moment. It showed that the Prime Minister is not in control of the narrative. He is being dragged along by events, reacting rather than leading. For a man who promised stable government, he is presiding over a period of unprecedented sleaze and scandal. The Epstein shadow is long, and it is growing darker by the hour.
The Human Rights Act of 1998 goes through and becomes law. Yet, never seen before, a book published in 1999, as shown on this channel by our political editor Christopher Hope an hour or two ago, European Human Rights Law. You'll never guess who wrote it. Yes, it was our Prime Minister. There he is on your screens, a very young-looking Keir Starmer, and he was the one that wrote this book. He designed it to be a handbook, a guidebook for the implementation of human rights law into the British legal system.
The analogy of the screen door on a submarine is perfect for Starmer's vetting process. It was designed to look like it worked, but it was never going to hold back the pressure of a scandal this size. The Prince of Darkness has finally brought the darkness to Downing Street. Whether Starmer can find a way to the light remains to be seen, but the calls for his resignation are only going to grow louder. In the final analysis, this is about trust. Do we trust a government that relies on the advice of men who were best pals with monsters? Do we trust a prime minister who prioritizes diplomatic convenience over moral clarity? The DOJ files have given us the answer, and Nigel Farage has made sure we all heard it. The establishment is on trial, and the verdict from the public is already coming in. Thank you for watching UK Unfiltered. This is the biggest story in British politics, and we will be here to cover every twist and turn. Make sure you share this video to help us reach more people. The truth cannot be silenced, and with your help, we will keep holding the powerful to account. This has been a fast-paced journey into the heart of Westminster corruption, and we are only just getting started. The suspense is building as we wait for the Prime Minister's next statement. Will he double down, or will he finally admit the mistake? Either way, the stain is permanent. Peter Mandelson's career is in ruins, and Keir Starmer's leadership is on the brink. This is the reality of British politics in 2026. Fast, sharp, and utterly unfiltered. Let us consider the broader implications for the UK-US relationship. With Mandelson sacked as ambassador, who takes over? Does Starmer dare to appoint another political ally, or will he finally choose a career diplomat? The vacancy in Washington is a gaping hole in our foreign policy at a time when we need it to be strongest. It is a self-inflicted wound caused by the Prime Minister's obsession with old Labour royalty. Nigel Farage knows that this scandal is the gift that keeps on giving. He is going to keep hammering away at the Westminster elite narrative, and every new email from the Epstein files is more fuel for his fire. Starmer is in a defensive crouch, and in politics, when you are explaining, you are losing. He is spending all his energy explaining Mandelson instead of governing the country. The moral bankruptcy that Badenoch mentioned is the core issue. It is not just about the rules. It is about the values. What does it say about the values of a government that finds it acceptable to keep a man like Mandelson in the Privy Council? It says that the rules are for the little people, while the elite live in a different world of bursaries, gifts, and secret memos. Farage's press conference was a masterclass in how to disrupt the political cycle. By standing next to Lee Anderson, he showed that reform is a force to be reckoned with. They are not just on the fringes, they are in the center of the debate. And as long as Starmer keeps making mistakes like Mandelson, reform is going to keep growing. The analogy of the Hindenburg is apt. This is a disaster that was avoidable, but it was ignored until it was too late. The forensic Starmer saw the sparks, but chose to ignore them. Now, the whole thing is in flames. The question is not if the reputation of the government will be damaged, but if it can ever be repaired. As we conclude this deep dive, the question remains, can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson stain? He has already lost his U.S. ambassador. He has already lost a senior party member. Now he risks losing the trust of the electorate. The Prince of Darkness may finally be heading for the exit, but he is threatening to take the Prime Minister's reputation with him. It is a suspenseful, fast-paced drama that is only just beginning. Thank you for watching UK Unfiltered. If you found this insight valuable, do not forget to share the video and join the conversation in the comments.